You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Welcome to On the Way. I'm Beth White, your co-host this morning. I have Jenn Delvaux with me as well. She's in a separate studio here at the Archdiocese of Chicago. Due to COVID protocols, we can be maskless in separate rooms. Good morning, Jenn.
Good morning.
Good morning. She has an awesome background. For those of you watching us on YouTube, you can see the difference in our backgrounds, but our listeners on the radio won't be able to tell the difference. So good morning, Jenn.
Good morning.
So today, the topic of our show is building a new reality together. And so the building a new reality is a phrase, and it is a phase of the Renew My Church process. So lots of times people think Renew My Church is just the part where we're consolidating or structural change. But in reality, that is what leads us to the spiritual renewal component that our office is really knee-deep involved in building the new reality. So for today, we're going to, second half of the show, Jenn and I are going to talk a little bit about what that means for the Evangelization office. But on the first part of the show, we have Dr. Angela Swain. Wow, that was kind of came off the tongue oddly. Dr. Angela Swain, she is the Director for Human Dignity and Solidarity here in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. So Dr. Angela is, she's been with us for, almost a year now. Is that right?
A year on the 18th of this month.
Wow. And I have been trying to get her on the show every month, and I ask her too late in the process, or the topic wasn't right. So I'm very grateful that she's with us on this January and her year anniversary. And so we are talking a little bit today with her about missionary discipleship. So I think just foundationally, if you could just let our listeners and our viewers know what the Human Dignity and Solidarity office is here in the Archdiocese.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me,
Absolutely.
Beth and Jenn. I appreciate this moment. So my office has 10 ministries.
Wow.
So we have Immigration National, Immigration Local, Respect Life, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, also known as CCHD, Catholic Relief Services, or CRS, Amate House, which does leadership development for 21 through 29-year-olds, Colby House, that's the prison ministry, domestic violence, care for our common home, and racial justice.
So when she was like, so what do you want me to talk about? I was like, yeah, I know, right? And so there's a common theme within all of those are outreach ministries. Those are ministries that our parishes would, in a lot of ways, be sort of outreach, right? They are ways to help. Catholic Relief Services is international. CCHD is helping people at all levels. Colby House and domestic violence, and these are all sort of human dignity topics, and they were all sort of put together, and they don't maybe. In a lot of dioceses, they wouldn't normally fit together. How do you see these different ministries fitting together?
Sure. I think one of the biggest ways that they fit together is putting the person in the center. So we don't care. So, when Father Chuck is ministering to people who have experienced domestic violence, or Mary Claire is ministering to someone who is incarcerated, we look at the whole person. We minister with the whole person in mind. Yes, you're serving and meeting a particular need, but you do that through the lens of Jesus, and looking at the human person and looking at all those things that make up who that person is, the very essence of who they are. And that's the common thread through each and every ministry under my office.
I was really struck by that just now because I think we're in the midst of this cancel culture. And
Yes.
I was reflecting last week on King David. For some reason, the readings were about King David. And I was thinking about just what we hear a lot about his good story, but there was a lot of bad stuff in King David. But God worked through him and used him in order to build up the people of Israel. And so how do you see that sort of theme of meeting people? A lot of the folks are at the lowest part of their life, right? And your office is reaching in to help them.
Yeah. And so I think our office has a nice, I don't want to say, maybe for lack of a better word, cross section of who Jesus ministered to.
Yeah.
Right. And who we are as the body of Christ, if we're honest. Right. So we obviously have people who are, in prison, people experiencing domestic violence, people also who have had abortions, people who need to feel empowered sort of from the ground up, if you will, in our work with CCHD. So I think that, overall, our ministries are there to meet the needs of the person, the whole person, and then we're constantly looking at who God sees them to be, right? And what and who God calls them to be and look. So an example of this with Amate House. One of my passions professionally, I'm an organizational psychologist, is leadership development. And so when you have a group of, say, 20-year-olds, right, they may not know where they want to be in the next 5 years or even 2 years, right? But we have a process, which is why I love the evangelization model of missionary discipleship, because we really take that approach in accompanying people, regardless of where they are, and journeying with them so that they can do and be whomever they feel God is calling them to be.
Must be a big part of the movement in all of the work that you all do, right? Because I know CCHD does a lot of granting to organizations to really give them a leg up, to give them some beautiful organizations that really, they're not huge grants, but they are huge to them, right? They give them a little bit to help them advance whatever that dream is to help build the kingdom.
And one of the things I really do appreciate about CCHD is that, there have been organizations that I've worked with that kind of have a top-down view of let us help you. Where CCHD is really a movement from the people. And it was actually started in Chicago 50 years ago. And so it's this really groundbreaking movement for people who are on the margins to be participants and to share and articulate what their current need is. Unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of the donations have dwindled, but we're confident that as we continue the work, God will indeed continue to provide.
And that's probably because they haven't been able to go to the parishes and do the talks for the second collections and things like that.
And people have lost jobs, so people who would normally donate aren't able to do so right now.
Yeah, exactly. So when we talk a lot about missionary discipleship, you use the phrase, and sometimes people are like, what does that mean? So a way that we think about it in our office, it's a much deeper, however you want to think about it, but a disciple is someone who has encountered Jesus, knows that Jesus is very much alive today, who the living Christ is still among us, and that this person has chosen to follow Jesus. There's an intentionality. A disciple is someone who is willing to make sacrifices to be in relationship with God. So that means they'll do that Bible study. They'll sign up for that retreat. They will participate. They will help out at the parish and do all kinds of things at the parish. A missionary disciple, however, it's someone who has all of that as a disciple, but something has happened within them that they now have an outward motion. And so we would say a missionary disciple is someone who loves the people of God and will make any sacrifice for the people of God. And it's just one of the things we'll say about a disciple is someone who has a daily prayer life. A missionary disciple is someone who can talk about their prayer life. A disciple will say, I'll pray for you, Angela. A missionary disciple will say, pray with you right now? We just stop everything and just pray with you? And it's that sense of, I'm really thinking about what God would want for you and really helping you find who you are in the image of God, right? And so when I give you that like animation of what a missionary disciple is, how do you see that as a critical part of the work in, or not, in human dignity and the work of human dignity and solidarity?
Thank you for the question. I think it's central to the work that we do. When I hear the difference between discipleship and missionary discipleship, one of the words that that keeps resonating for me is this word connection and accompaniment with others.
Yeah.
And so in ministries like CCHD, CRS, Amate House, Care for Creation, I mean, if you think about the Care for Creation ministry alone, if we're not connected in some way or feel that we're connected with the world or the globe or the environment, there's no ministry if we have no earth. So I think when I hear those two different concepts, namely discipleship and missionary discipleship, I hear the word connection. And I also feel a big part of it is, a position of the heart, right? And it's the position to say, I will do whatever God wants me to do, wherever God calls me to go. Here I am, Lord, send me.
Mm-hmm. And the sense that God will provide whatever it is that's needed, right? I mean, we're all pretty capable people, but at the end of the day, a missionary disciple, it doesn't have to have a theology degree, and they don't have to be uber educated, or it's just someone who's willing to put themselves out there for God, like with God at the center. Because sometimes we can volunteer and do all kinds of social justice things. And we know that even our public school kids are asked to do volunteer work. And that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. But in terms of how you look at your work, there's a distinction, right, between just volunteering and doing service versus actually being Christ for others and seeing Christ in others. How does that manifest itself?
Yeah, sure. So when I think of the word volunteering, and before we go to that question, I just want to bring up something about doing anything and for God and everything for God. And that's not to say, because some people listening may feel like in our framework we have no sense of boundaries, and that's certainly not true.
I know.
So we definitely hold those. We hold people who are in service to others top of mind for sure. So I just wanted to offer that in case people, there was some confusion around that.
Yep.
But to your question about volunteering, the difference between volunteering and being a missionary disciple, I feel like when you volunteer, it's often something that's imposed. Right. So you have to do it, say, sometimes students have to do it for service hours.
Fill those hours. Right.
They have to do it in order to be in the National Honor Society or something like that.
The college transcripts.
Exactly. All those like check. Yeah. And certainly that was imposed upon me largely when I was younger, right? But it gets to a place of evolution, is our prayer, that maybe one can start off as a volunteer and move to the space of missionary discipleship, where there's an intentionality, and I keep saying about the heart, but there's an intentionality in one's heart where they're doing it in service, right? Their heart is of a servant leader, and they're doing it because this, going back to our lens in the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity, in care and service of the whole person.
So we're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation with Dr. Angela Swain from the Office for Human Dignity and Solidarity.
Catholic Charities, we fight hunger in Chicago throughout the year. Our 6 regional offices in Cook and Lake counties work together to offer sit-down and to-go meals to anyone in need. We deliver meals to those who are homebound, and our 8 food pantries offer 3 to 4 days of food supplies based on household size. Participants in these programs have the opportunity to learn about other Catholic charity services that strengthen individuals, families, and their communities. The challenges for those dealing with food insecurity are especially great during the winter months. To learn how you can help those who are hungry in your neighborhood, visit CatholicCharities.net or call 312-655-7525. That's 312-655-7525. Thank you for your generosity.
I feel special. I feel great. I got good grades.
We've seen a huge surge in our kids now meeting or exceeding grade level. Come check us out. You may have never thought we were an option before.
Ancestry and genealogy are more important every day. People all over the world are wanting to learn more about their family heritage for personal and for health reasons. At Catholic Charities, we are hearing from adults who lived for a brief time at St. Vincent's Orphanage, the wonderful life-affirming agency that operated out of our headquarters for 91 years, serving thousands of women, children, and families until it closed in 1972. Our post-adoption services help adults who want to learn more about their experience at St. Vincent's. Our compassionate staff members provide whatever family background information they can offer, along with support and reunion services. To learn more, call 312-655-7093. That's 312-655-7093. The spirit of St. Vincent's lives on in the inspiring stories that continue to emerge today.
Can a blind man finally see the light? Can a blind man finally see the light? Well, if you were in the dark your whole life, could you tell what the light looks like? Can a blind man finally see the light? Well, I'm on my way. I can't get there on my own. Heaven's gate.
Welcome back to On the Way. I am Beth White, your co-host with Jenn Delvaux this morning. I know you haven't heard Jen's voice very much. I am doing the first part of the show with Dr. Angela Swain, and then you will get to hear from Jenn soon. So welcome back. And Dr. Angela, as we continue our conversation, before we broke for break, we were talking about a volunteer who sometimes just has to do things and they check boxes versus someone who is a missionary disciple who really has a heart for the people, has a heart for the work. And obviously through faith, through the lens of faith, because we can have very passionate people that may not have it through the lens of faith, and that is the distinction. But I love that you just really clarified boundaries, because our work, a missionary disciple is never there to impose anything or to be the one that saves other people. It's to just sort of walk alongside people and help. And maybe you're further along on the journey, so you're giving them a little bit of like here's the path and like here's how I got here kind of thing. Is that how you see this working? Is that we're those of us who have maybe just further along, maybe just a little older, like you're talking about the Amate folks and helping them, unfortunately a little older, a lot older, like I've been down this road for a while, let me help you like navigate so you don't trip over that rock that I did kind of thing. Is that sort of how you're thinking about this?
Yeah, I do in some ways. I consider ministry, especially the work of social justice ministry, like a large kit, right? And we have many tools in that toolkit, right? So some people, and I like studying leadership and different types of leadership styles. So I really feel like in my office, it's a lot of shepherd leadership with the heart of a servant.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the image that comes to mind. I love the scripture that talks about, my favorite image actually of Jesus is of the good shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, so to your question, that sometimes that is, I go before you a little bit and I've seen kind of what's coming and I can help you along the way. Sometimes it's standing alongside of the person and journeying with them, more than accompaniment feeling. And then sometimes it's like, no, you got it. I can stay back a little bit and
walk
you have
behind
a question,
you.
you'll pause. And
And sometimes
so
it's
I think
picking
all
the
of
sheep
those.
up and putting them on your shoulders, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. But obviously, with the servant's heart.
Yeah. So I there's a scripture that struck me recently. And I don't know, I do Lectio Divina, and I was just reflecting on when Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law, and he took her hand, and he and I just thought, wow, isn't that interesting that Jesus like took her hand and helped her out of bed, and then she like served them, and it was her way of giving back, right? And so that it was just that the power of Jesus is so gentle. It isn't, it's mind-boggling how it isn't overpowering, because so much power in our world is about control and getting all the accolades. But there's servant leadership that you're talking about, this like taking someone by the hand and just lifting them up, and that's it. And just healing them in that sense, right? And letting Jesus work through you, because it's never us that does any of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's just a beautiful image.
And when you said that, it strikes me too, because no matter who you are, right, in whatever context you may be in, you belong to Him, right? So there's always this connection between Jesus and the person that He's serving, ministering to, healing, etc., because you belong, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just a beautiful, I think that's part to that word is so powerful that you just used, Beth, which is gentle, right? It's all a part of it. He's so gentle because He cares, because you belong to Him.
And when you love someone, you never force anything upon them. I mean, that's you invite, you encourage, you accompany, you have a talking to. There are consequences, but you're a parent, I know. But love isn't about love has to be to have love returned. It has to be freedom, right? And so there is sort of, sometimes you have to let people, take it on their own time, and that's also the accompaniment, is we don't force a timeline on people. That's part of the missionary discipleship, is understanding that it's not our outcomes, it's God's outcomes. And that could take a person 40 years to come to sobriety or to make a decision for their life. But it isn't for us to judge, it's to us to accompany.
Exactly. Yeah. Accompaniment without judgment.
Exactly. So another part of your office is racial justice, right? It's the and I believe you've really brought that to the forefront this year. Well, given the world that we're in right now. And so could you talk just a few minutes about what you all have been doing? I know you've been doing, it's just been a year. So what kinds of things are you working on with that?
Sure. So I will definitely give credit to where credit is due. So Holly and Bishop Kevin Birmingham really saw a need, especially after the tragic death of George Floyd, to bring people together, bring the pastoral center together, and make sure that we had a response to whatever the Derek Chauvin verdict was. And so we've been meeting since then, and it's been a really, really collaborative space where my office and OLF, so the Office of Lifelong Formation, Mission Identity, the Pastoral Center, we come together and we really support each other in the work that we're doing around helping and moving our organization to become an anti-racist organization. And so often what that will look like is, I'm sorry, I didn't mention Office of Catholic Schools as well. So what that means is if someone is thinking of putting together a manual for schools, we all take a look at it to say,
great.
okay, what does this document say? Who is the audience? Who are you speaking to? How will people who have been traumatized receive this information? Because we're very careful to not cause additional harm to a person who's already experienced a lot of trauma in light of racism.
Excellent. I saw that you have a newsletter called Weaving Threads of Justice. So how could someone sign up for that newsletter? Because it's a plethora of information about everything that you have going on.
Yes, it's amazing. So we have wonderful, I just want to put a little plug out for our interns. They are amazing. They resuscitated our newsletter for us.
Oh, awesome.
It had been quite some time since we had, I think, gosh, maybe 2 years since we had a newsletter. So I'm very grateful for them.
It's beautiful.
So you can reach out to, well, you can go on our website, our Archdiocese website, and then you'll see my office website for OHDS, and then they can shoot us an email, and then we'll put them on the roster.
So you can search under the Arch website under Human Dignity and Solidarity. Also, you can find it through the Department of Parish Vitality and Ministry. It's a subset, the Office for Human Dignity and Solidarity. And you can check out all their work. You do a lot of work in parishes. You collaborate. You help a lot of parish leaders to bring about, you have outside entities like Colby House, but you also have connections with parishes, with Colby House, parishes with, so it's a real collaborative effort between HDS and parish life.
Definitely.
Yeah. So is there any last words for us that you'd like to share just so our listeners understand your work and the power of it?
Sure. I'll leave with this imagery. So when I first came to the Archdiocese, so it's kind of fitting that a year later, I still believe in the same power of this image. Someone asked me, what's your vision for the office? And I said, I really want to help create a space where the people who are in power see those who are most vulnerable and see themselves. And that the people who aren't feeling vulnerable can look at those who are in power and glean a sense of empowerment. Because when we look at each other, I want us to see the other person. That's the image I have.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll have to have you
so
on
much
again.
For the invitation.
We can double click into any of those areas, right? I love you too,
absolutely.
Dr. Angela. All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day and stay warm out there.
Thank you.
Thank
you for the invitation.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
And we'll be back with a conversation with me and Jenn Delvaux about the work of the Office for Evangelization here in the diocese and building the new reality.
Can a blind man finally see the light? Can a blind man finally see the light? Well, if you were in the dark your whole life, could you tell what the light looks like? Can a blind man finally see the light? Well, I'm on my way. I can't get there on my own. And heaven's gate, the walls getting too low. As I wait for you to come and take me home, I'm a walking in the light with you, the kingdom road.
At Catholic Charities, we fight hunger in Chicago throughout the year. Our 6 regional offices in Cook and Lake counties work together to offer sit-down and to-go meals to anyone in need. We deliver meals to those who are homebound, and our 8 food pantries offer 3 to 4 days of food supplies based on household size. Participants in these programs have the opportunity to learn about other Catholic charity services that strengthen individuals, families, and their communities. The challenges for those dealing with food insecurity are especially great during the winter months. To learn how you can help those who are hungry in your neighborhood, Visit CatholicCharities.net or call 312-655-7525. That's 312-655-7525. Thank you for your generosity.
We are at the Most Blessed Trinity Parish Food Pantry in Waukegan.
And here we care for people in need. There was definitely an uptick in the needs for services.
We doubled our volume after COVID hit, from servicing about 250 families a week to about 500 a week. We supply bread, tortillas, vegetables, milk, cheese, butter, proteins, fish, chicken, eggs.
Well, the annual Catholic Appeal has been a tremendous help to us, especially over the past year and a half.
Without the annual Catholic Appeal, we might have to close our doors. Our parish is the largest one in the Archdiocese, but is very poor. We think about food and we think about nourishment, but we also nourish the soul, provide that connection to humanity.
The good works here are made possible through the annual Catholic Appeal. Make your gift at annualcatholicappeal.com.
Ancestry and genealogy are more important every day. People all over the world are wanting to learn more about their family heritage for personal and for health reasons. At Catholic Charities, we are hearing from adults who lived for a brief time at St. Vincent's Orphanage, the wonderful life-affirming agency that operated out of our headquarters for 91 years, serving thousands of women, children, and families until it closed in 1972. Our post-adoption services help adults who want to learn more about their experience at St. Vincent's. Our compassionate staff members provide whatever family background information they can offer, along with support and reunion services. To learn more, call 312-655-7093. That's 312-655-7093. The spirit of St. Vincent's lives on in the inspiring stories that continue to emerge today.
And a blind man finally see the light. Well, I'm on my way. I can't get there on my own. Heaven's gate, the world's getting too low. As I wait for you to come and take me home, I'm a walking in the light with you, the kingdom come.
Welcome back to On the Way. I'm Beth White, your co-host. Hi, Jenn Delvaux.
Hello.
Jen, you were listening to the interview before, right?
I was, yes. Some of my favorite subjects there, especially Catholic Relief Services, is near and dear.
Killing her not to jump in. So Jen, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too.
We're excited to be with our listeners today and just talk a little bit about our work. You know, we spent the last 8 months, for those of you who listened faithfully, talking about a culture of evangelization and really breaking open those 8 areas. Actually, 9 months, because month number 1, we broke it open. So now we're like, okay, now what theme are we going to carry us through when we have to come up with content each month? And so I talked to Jen and I said, hey, Jen, let's start talking about these things called building blocks. So let me just set a little of the foundation, Jen, and then I'm going to ask you to just talk about your experience. So when we got started with this whole process of building the new reality and the evangelization office and what the heck we were going to do to help parishes understand evangelization, we came up with a process that we said we're going to walk with our communities, just like Dr. Angela said. We're going to accompany folks. We're going to accompany our pastors and leaders and really sort of help them understand what we mean by this modern sense of evangelization. And to do that, we have now a team of 7 coordinators.
Yep.
Awesome. We had someone start earlier in January. And we go out and we work individually with the communities and we accompany them on this journey at whatever their pace is. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, we had a very systematic way we go, right? We would meeting number 1, meeting number 2, meeting number 3. But now, all this time later, people are getting it. They get the vision. They understand. Remember, Jen, in the early days when all the way back 3.5 years ago.
I know.
When we would talk about like, what is evangelization? How many of you think it's Protestant? And like almost all the hands went up in the room. And now when we ask that, like no hands go up. And it's really exciting to see that people are really understanding what we're talking about now. When we talk about building blocks, what do I mean when I say that?
Well, these are some of the core pieces that we really know that a parish needs in order to help form missionary disciples and build that culture of evangelization. So
I'm going to interrupt you, Jen.
Yep.
Tell our listeners why missionary disciples are so important in the work of evangelization.
Simply, they're the ones who are going to evangelize. They're the ones who are going to help form other missionary disciples, and they're the ones who make up the culture of the parish. So if our whole goal of Renew My Church and building the new reality is this parish transformation and renewal of parish vitality, that requires the transformation of the individual people, and that means forming missionary disciples first and foremost.
Because renewal actually happens within the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's each of us leaning into our baptismal call, each of us leaning into a deeper relationship with God, right?
Yes.
It's not a thing that happens.
No.
Yeah. No. All right, so back to building blocks. I'm sorry. So missionary disciples, so talk a little bit about is this foundation that we need in the parish?
So one of the first pieces that we look to are the leaders, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, how's the pastor with all of this? Are we able to establish that relationship with the pastor, build the trust with him? And how engaged is he? Does he get excited about this? And to work with him to discern then an evangelization lead, because pastors are busy men.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the whole process of Renew My Church and building the new reality is really lifting up other leaders to help support the pastor and to help build parish vitality. And so we want to support the pastor in discerning who an evangelization lead is that he can empower and trust, communicate well with on a regular basis, and they'll really run point and be the person that I as the coordinator work most closely with in that community.
So I'm gonna talk just a little bit about the pastor. So we recognize that, as you said, they're very busy, and that pastors also have been formed oftentimes, if they're diocesan pastors, sometimes the religious community are a little different because they have a different type of formation. But they're really formed to serve the people within the parish, like who come through the doors. That's their job,
Yes.
to really serve the men and women who are in the pews, who are in the ministries. And I say religious because they may have more of a missionary formation component to them. But the reason that we really want lay people to be in these leadership roles for evangelization is that we're the ones out in the world, right? We're the ones who are out there in our neighborhoods, and we really need folks who are empowered and formed, who can be not just people who are leading things within the parish, like in the church, but out there, right?
Yes, definitely.
And so we need that the pastor to be able to empower someone else, because it can't all be on him, and we can't expect it to all be on him. It's not on him, right?
No, not at all. And it's what we're called to, each one of us, whether you're a pastoral staff member like us, or you are a parishioner, that this is part of our baptismal call. This isn't something special that you're deputized to with this role. This is inherent for each of us.
So we're doing some evangelism, and we're going to continue to talk about building blocks. But one of them, Jen was just mentioning, is an evangelization lead, and we also need team members. But before we even get to that, depends. Sometimes we walk in and there's already a lead and a team, but we also do an inventory of the parish. So talk a little bit about what that inventory is and its purpose and its genesis.
So this was one of the earliest pieces that we put together in our office, because we recognize that we really have to learn about the parish community as it is. And that includes, in a lot of these situations, figuring out what's gone on in the different, we kind of had to come up with the term parishes of origin. So if there was a unification, what was going on in each one of the parishes that's now a part of this new parish, and see see, what is their experience with adult formation? How do they respond to adults seeking confirmation or RCIA? What sort of small groups have they offered? What is the prayer life within the parish like? Do they have prayer ministries and groups and so forth? And this is all in an effort to kind of get a pulse of, over the last 5 years or so, what's this parish like, and who might be individuals, what's their understanding of adult formation, what's their understanding of evangelization and discipleship and missionary discipleship, so that we have an idea of the groundwork that's already there, and we don't presume things incorrectly, and we also build on the strengths that are already there, because so many parishes have so many absolutely incredible pieces, and we really want to honor that, and we really want to make sure we're building on their strengths. And then where there are gaps or where there are places that need reinforcement, bring the resources of our office to really help support those, so that they can, be ever more mindful of that mission to form missionary disciples.
And I just want to stress that was a really important piece for us in the very beginning, like Jenn said, because we really sensed that we needed to know who our parishes were. And several of our parishes had extensive experience with Christ Renews His Parish. Some parishes had been doing Alpha. Some parishes have done Christ Life retreats, all kinds of different retreat experiences. And that also in our ethnic communities, we have all kinds of different movements and experiences within the life of the parish. And as Jenn said, parish of origin, you have 3 different communities coming together. They have 3 different experiences.
Yes.
And so what do we do with that information, Jenn?
So over the course of sometimes several weeks, sometimes several months, we really use this as one of the ways that we try to get to know the parish, and that this happens.
Now, we take all the data that we get, but this is much more of we ask that there are key leaders within the community. So if it's a non-structured, there's no change, physical change, we just ask for about 6 people to fill it out with some institutional knowledge, including the pastor. But then if it's a community that is reconfigured, sort of consolidated together, unified, we ask that each community give us about 5 to 6 people. And it's a lot more data, but it gives us sort of an understanding of who do we think we are and who are we. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So, we take this and we look through it, and there's some really great open-ended questions that can give us a lot of insight that for these individuals, how do they think about where the good news is proclaimed? How do they think about where missionary disciples are formed, where people encounter Jesus Christ in their parish? And how, do they discern a difference between those questions is actually one of the most useful pieces, because that helps us understand more. And when we go through it, we start to see where are places that we'd like some clarification. If all of a sudden we see, I worked with a pastor who I just loved working with, and was just like, I don't know how we're going to do this. Nobody really understands evangelization. Nobody really understands witness, or how do we... And so I get the inventory back from this parish, and I look at it and I go, oh my goodness, you have 250 women every year showing up to this amazing Advent event that involves 4 testimonies, a shared meal, and this phenomenal community building. That's evangelization. Every year, those 250 women are now...
And there are missionary disciples within that, right?
Exactly. And so when we could connect the dots that here's a way that you're already doing this, and this isn't reinventing the wheel, this isn't something totally new, but we can build off of that and invite some of those women into this process, all of a sudden this became much more understandable and much easier to embrace, and again points out where this incredible strength within this community was. So that's part of how I know I've used it in conversation with various pastors and staff so far over the years.
Excellent. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back and talk a little bit more about the building blocks and the work that we do in the different parishes.
Well, I'm on my way. I can't get there on my own. At Heaven's Gate. No one's getting through alone. As I wait for you to come and take me home, I'm a walking in the light with you, the kingdom come.
I feel special. I feel great. I got good grades.
We've seen a huge surge in our kids now meeting or exceeding grade level. Come check us out. You may have never thought we were an option before.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome back to On the Way. I'm Beth White, your co-host this morning. I'm speaking with Jenn Delvaux about building the new reality and how we're building it together and how we need missionary disciples at the core of this work of evangelization. And so Jenn was talking a little bit about the inventory and the importance of really getting a grounding of where the parishes are. We don't, our coordinators don't go in with all the answers. We have we think about it as almost like architects. We really want to build on what you already have and help you train the trainer kind of methodology. So Jenn, after we have an inventory and let's say we help them discern who's a good evangelization lead and who's a good team members, because we need a cross section of the parish, right, to be a part of this. Can you talk a little bit about the team and why that's important?
I think
and why we don't call it a ministry,
right,
or a committee.
Yeah. So a committee might be one of my least favorite words in church work, I gotta say. The fact that it's an evangelization team is to really get across that evangelization isn't something that happens over in this corner of the church and then everywhere else is the rest of parish life and the rest of church.
It's not one of many ministries.
Exactly.
Right?
You know, one of my favorite quotes is from St. Paul VI about how evangelization is the church's deepest identity. It's part of our vocation as church. And so this reason for the evangelization team and not committee or not ministry is that while there may be particular projects or tools or programs that are connected with our work, that their real big, final goal is that every aspect of parish life is infused with evangelization. That's why we talk about a culture of evangelization in addition to forming missionary disciples, that they're called to really help bring this, all of those components we've talked about for the last 9 months and bring those into every aspect of parish life so that no matter where a person walks in the door, whether it's physically or even on the website or calling the parish office, that they encounter Christ and they encounter this culture there. So that means that they're connected into all different aspects of the community. So you might have some school parents, you might have some of the seniors. If there's different ethnic and cultural groups in the parish, they're represented on the team so that every dimension of parish life is able to bring this culture of evangelization to fruition.
And so part of that is for a very intentional evangelization process. We get that team, we train them. We are in the midst right now of a 4-week series. We offer it 3 times a year for evangelization teams, and we give them a sort of a boot camp, as it were, 8 hours for 4 weeks of 2-hour sessions on the basics of evangelization. What is a disciple and a missionary disciple? What is this culture we're talking about? And what's your role in that culture, right? And so we really give them the basics, even though we will have a coordinator who accompanies them. We want all of these folks. So will have trained by the end of January over 250 people through that online course. Prior to that, I think we had probably another 150 or so that we did one-offs in parishes. So these folks then they activate as a team a soft entry point.
Yes.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what a soft entry point is, or a charismatic entry point, which is my preference?
I'm going to differentiate between the two.
Thank you.
Because parishes have, and I think should have, a lot of soft entry points. Those can be everything from, we've just finished Christmas, but we're not too far from Lent. So those parish fish fries and things like that. Or, maybe there's a parish movie night, or art or music is, a great way.
The summer festivals.
Exactly. I mean, eventually it's going to be warm again. Right. So these are all places where people can drift in, and they are, safe in a way. They're understandable to an outsider who doesn't have any Catholic language or experience. But what we're talking about with evangelization is that charismatic soft entry point. Now that's, a different word for a lot of our listeners, I suspect. But at its essence, charismatic is simply that good news of Jesus Christ, coming because of God's love to offer salvation and hope of resurrection. And so what we look for with a charismatic soft entry point is something that expresses that, something that's experiential, something that involves prayer and helps to build a sense of community and belonging with people. And ideally also some sort of retreat-like experience. A lot of them have either a day or a weekend retreat component. So initially, the evangelization team serves as the people who are implementing that charismatic soft entry point. And there's several different options that all have different pluses and minuses and different considerations, from cost to language to length, and do you want video or books and so forth. So as we're going through the inventory, as we're having these conversations with the pastor and the leadership, we're helping to discern what is the charismatic soft entry point tool that makes the most sense in this particular community, because we also want that one parish to have one tool so that there is the same kind of base language and experience for everybody. And so particularly in some of our parishes have 7+ languages, and the parishes I work with, we had to really think about, okay, what can we practically do, because we want to make sure everyone can experience God in the way that they're most comfortable. And that often means in their original language.
And what we have come to see in terms of this charismatic entry point, and we have this beautiful image of a pool, and we talk about the disciples' journey as like getting in the pool. Like, you can be someone who hangs out around the pool, but a disciple is actually someone who will get in and then start to go a little deeper and learn some strokes. The seeker gets in, right? And then they go deeper and deeper. And then by the time that you're able to swim, you're pretty much following like as a disciple. It's a great image. And the missionary disciple is the one that'll get out, they'll give swimming lessons, they invite people in. We love that image. But this charismatic entry point is a way to just start getting in the pool, right? It's a soft, gentle way to sort of explore your own questions, your own thoughts. And what we know is that many people in our pews haven't gotten in the pool yet. They come, they hang out around the pool, but they haven't gotten in the pool. And so it's for them as well, right?
It is, definitely. And this is something here all the time, is that they've learned about God, but they don't actually know God, and that distinction between being able to pass that test for religious ed or theology versus that relationship component. or they have questions and they've never really felt there's a safe space to ask those questions without being judged to be a bad Catholic or to be seen as, well, you should know this. You're a certain age or you've been sacramentalized. You should have all of these answers already. So, that's a very common refrain that we hear in this.
And the seeker's journey and a person's journey is actually filled with questions.
Always.
And really what we say is that charismatic entry point, you should leave it not with answers. You should leave it with more questions. You'll have a baseline, but then comes the formation, the catechetical components, the next steps, as it were, based on where you're at, right?
Yes. And that's, circling back to that inventory, that's some of why we look at those, is to see where are those pieces already in the parish that can be the natural landing pad, so that when somebody has questions about Scripture, is there already a Bible study that we can work with? Is there already a prayer group?
Is there an RCIA?
Exactly.
Yeah. And what we came to see is that, believe it or not, listeners, many of our parishes don't have anything for adults. Nothing. No. Goose egg. They focus on the kiddos, but not their parents, not their grandparents, not their aunts and uncles. They just really, they have very limited resources.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason for Renew My Church, was that 40% of our parishes had no one on staff doing ministry full time except Father. And that isn't viable in terms of what needs to happen in our communities, right, Jen?
Right. And, and I want to be clear, it's not that these parishes and these pastors don't want to offer anything.
They just don't have the resources.
They literally can't, either financial space,
human
or the manpower.
Exactly.
Yes. Right.
Because the communities were small or had limited resources. And so there was a real need for us to sort of bring us together a little bit so that we can do more of this work to go outward, right?
Yeah.
So back to the building. Oh, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. So back to the building blocks. So we get this soft entry point going, and then we do these next steps. And then we'll start focusing on hospitality. So Jen, explain to our listeners, we don't have a lot of time, but why don't we start with just welcome ministry, hospitality? Why don't we do that?
It circles back to that original question. Those only function and help build a new reality if the people are missionary disciples. If they have that experience of, as Dr. Angela Swain was talking about, of accompaniment and meeting people where they're at. And that's a component within the charismatic soft entry point. And so by building off of the experience that they've had through that, we can help say, how can we translate that from the charismatic soft entry point into your ministry as somebody who's part of a hospitality ministry? So it's very much growing the individual as a missionary disciple so that then they can manifest that call and that vocation to serve others in hospitality in this way that is that shift versus just continuing to do things the same way, but maybe with better brochures. That's not quite what we're shooting for.
So one of the reasons we call them building blocks is we're building a foundation. So we, as Jen just said, we need folks that have that inclination of being able to not just promote their ministries or get people to volunteer for their ministries. And I'm not denigrating that. But the point is who are you and what is God calling you to? Right. What are your gifts? What is your curiosity? What are your questions? And you know what? Gosh, now we have this charismatic entry point that you could go explore for yourself, or we have this Bible study that's been renovated, or we actually want parishes to do some of that interior cultivating, building, so that and it takes time, right, Jen?
It does. And I think that's the thing is there's people who want to jump the process and start the programs without the groundwork of leadership and formation and so forth, or they want to rush through, and that unfortunately can leave people behind. And then all of a sudden you're trying to do these programs without having transformed individuals who actually are the substance and source of that program's efficacy.
So one of the tools that we used is called a parable of the sower. And so we can talk more about that in another conversation. But one of the things we point out in there is that people have these mountaintop experiences. They go on retreat. They go through RCIA. They have these powerful moments of a charismatic entry point, and then it's over.
Right.
And there's nothing that the community that they go to church with doesn't feel anything like that small community that they had that incredible spiritual experience with. Building the new reality is creating parishes where when you come out of those mountaintop experiences, you have people that can walk with you and help you grow to wherever God's calling you to grow. Right, Jen?
Right, exactly.
It's part of the overall journey that you're being accompanied into this deepening water, right? Not just done. And getting the skill set then to help others.
Yes.
Because it's not all about us.
No.
Any last words, Jen?
No, I think anything that I try to say about this process, I'll probably open
long.
up a whole new topic.
All right. Well, thank you, Jen. Happy New
you.
Year.
Happy New
And we just really, our listeners continue to listen, and we're so excited to work with your parish if you're in this archdiocese. You will get there soon enough.
Yes.
One parish at a time.